educating began in 1978, the cost of tuition has increased by more than 1,000%. This has outpaced the rate of inflation. 40 million Americans owe more than $1 trillion in student debt. Do you have student loans? If you don't, you probably know many people who do. It has become increasingly common among college students. In fact, 71% of bachelor's degree recipients will have some form of student loan. That is compared to 2 decades ago when that number was less than 50%. Surprisingly enough, the cost of higher education to colleges has not changed over time very much. It's been pretty stable. And their total revenues has also remained pretty stable over time. What has changed is the amount of funding that they receive from states has decreased, and the amount of tuition has had to increase to make up for that difference. And as tuition grows faster and faster than incomes, people have to borrow more and more money to make up the difference. That has led to an increase in default rates, and a couple years ago, the default rates on student loans exceeded that of even credit card debt for the first time ever. And this is important because it affects our economy. Certain economic activity is not taking place. Things such as life cycle purchases, like buying a house, buying a car, saving for retirement, are not happening or are being postponed. And these same symptoms, as well as the increase in default rates, have been observed prior to the housing market crash in 2008. And it's for these reasons that I believe the system is in desperate need of reform and change. I'm going to show you a video that will cover what a few other countries are doing to provide lower cost higher education. And you'll see that there's not just one way to go about doing that. Point, and that is that politicians play a large role in determining how much funding colleges receive at both the state and federal levels. So my call to action for you guys would be to get out there and vote, and not just at the presidential election, but at other elections too. For example, congressional elections are very important, but they receive incredibly low voter turnout. And now I'm going to show you an example of a bill that calls for a very progressive reform at a time when funding for education is on a consistent decline. Earlier this year, Senator Bernie Sanders came up with a bill for the Senate called the College for All Act that would effectively eliminate tuition at all four-year public colleges and universities. It would also greatly decrease interest rates on student loans, as well as provide some other benefits. It would be funded by a very small tax on financial instruments, so it would not affect most people. And it would also inadvertently probably cause private schools and for-profit schools to have to lower their tuition to compete. Because right now, even though 75% of students are educated by public colleges and universities, a disproportionate amount goes to private and for-profit schools. And right now, according to govtrack.us, this bill is very unlikely to ever make it out of committee because it will not receive enough support. Opponents of measures like this will say that we can't afford it or that it will increase taxes too much, but that is not really necessarily true. I don't really have enough time to go over very detailed data, but if you just take what the government spends in 1 year on Pell Grants, work study, and tax breaks for students, that amount could cover the amount of public college tuition for the same amount of time. So just a simple reallocation of funds could already create a more beneficial situation. And to conclude, the United States is one of the wealthiest nations in the world, but it is not one of the nations currently providing higher or low-cost higher education to its students. The $1 trillion and growing U.S. student debt is almost unique in the world in the damage that it's causing a whole generation. And the U.S. practice of financing higher education with mass debt and not controlling the cost of college is already having consequences on the economy, and it is unsustainable in the long term. So it is very important for us to pay attention to politics and to also, to get out to the polls and vote if we hope to improve the situation and have reform and create a situation that is better for all the citizens in this country.